Hey guys, this is gonna be a guide when it comes to how to play the brand new Conduit archetype in Reverse1999's 3rd anniversary. Yes, I was starting off in the screen because I wanted to flex this Nautica garment. The Conduit archetype is not quite complete yet. We have Regulus and Coppelia playing together, and for the time being, until Ever Echo releases in version 3.8, we want to use powerhouses to pair together with Coppelia and Regulus, and those will be Rhiannon and Enigma. Now, the only thing that I want to tell you before we hop into battle is that you want to make sure that Coppelia stays in front of Regulus. Because as you can see here, whenever Coppelia would use her ultimate, she would grant 3 stacks of Conduit calibration 1 to herself and the adjacent ally behind. That's why Coppelia needs to stay in front of Regulus. What Conduit calibration 1 does is that Regulus and Coppelia herself, they would consume 1 energy less to use their incantations. That means that since we grant 3 stacks to Regulus, Regulus casts her incantation 3 times completely for free. Now, there's one more thing that you shall not forget. You have to change your first melody or your unfinished tune to a tonal sequence. That is very important, because that generates a precast energy that is called chaotic energy 2. That is key to play this team and very important. So yeah, that's just a reminder, don't forget about it. But now let's hop into battle, and there I will touch up upon things further. The very first turn is already very important and key. The first thing that you have to do is to switch Coppelia's incantation to her buff incantation. Her buff incantation grants the entire team critical hit rate. This buff is called Symphonic Unity, and it lasts for 3 rounds. That and the Coppelia's ultimate are the 2 reasons why we play Coppelia and why Coppelia is here in the first place. So don't forget about that. Then, how the rotation goes is for the time being very RNG dependent, because we don't have enough characters to generate enough energy for us to guarantee that we always have the energy that we would actually want or even need to play this team to the absolute maximum amount of efficiency. So it depends what the RNG throws at you when it comes to those energy, and based on that RNG you have to adjust. Let me walk you through this a little bit. Now, first let me activate the extra turn with Rhiannon. That is, I can activate it this turn because I have P5. If you have P2, you can activate this on turn 2. That is the recommended amount, because otherwise you would on P0 only be able to activate this on turn 3, but you want this on turn 2 because that is the turn or around the turn where you're gonna use your ultimates, and you want the extra turn while the effects of Coppelia's and Regulus' ultimates are in effect. Alright, so up to the rotation. How this goes is that you obviously always gonna use Rhiannon's ultimate and her buff incantation. So you use buff incantation with Rhiannon, you use Rhiannon's ultimate. And now comes the part where it depends on RNG. If you, just as you can see me here, if you have 2 energy available for Regulus, this can be a double star energy and a regular one, right? Or this can be, as I have it here, 2 star energy, like single target or single energy star energies, you know what I mean. If that's the case, you're always gonna use those. If you would only have 1 energy available for Regulus instead of 2, then you're gonna use Enigma twice. So if I wouldn't have these 2 star energies available for myself, then I would use Enigma twice, so that next round Enigma has his ultimate ready. But I prioritize Regulus because I want to build up harmonization with Regulus, and I would always use star energy. If I have at least 2 of those, available. If I, for example, would have one double star energy, I would use that regardless, you know, and then wing it with whatever. I would probably use another incantation with Rhiannon there, but definitely always, if you have 2 star energy, use them with Regulus. If I would have 2 mineral and just 1 star energy, I would use Enigma twice. Okay, so there we go. That is how your turn 1 will always go. And yeah, remember to switch the incantation from Coppelia to the buff incantation. I forgot this quite a bunch of times already, so yeah, just emphasis on it, remember that, and switch your tune. You will see on turn 2 actually why that is quite important to switch your tune, because in this turn 2 the energy is very likely actually to screw you over and not give you enough energy with Regulus, and therefore you need it because you want to activate her ultimate. So yeah, the animations here, there's a lot going on, yeah, and we just gonna wait it out. That's the thing in this game. And you see, that is exactly what I was talking about. Now, we have, of course, the harmonization already filled up with Regulus. We do not want to use our ultimate quite this turn already though. I mean, under those RNG circumstances here, we could. But you usually want to use the incantations for both Coppelia and Regulus this turn. You always prioritize incantation number 1 from Regulus, the one that holds only 1 target. You can see the picture here on your screen. Then you're gonna go ahead and you will activate a chaotic energy 2. There we go. Now this counts as any energy that we would actually like to use, and that is exactly what we want. So then we have next turn both ultimates available from Regulus and Coppelia at the same turn. And so we're gonna go ahead, we use everything first that we have available with Rhiannon because it is AP free. And now we're gonna bust out as much energy as we possibly can, with an emphasis on the star energy, so that Regulus goes as nuts as she possibly can. We only have, quote unquote, only have this 1 star energy available, but we also have 2 rainbow energy, so that is nothing to worry about too much. There we go, right? We used everything that we have with Rhiannon, we used all of our energy, we used our tune, and now we have 1 AP available to spare. That would then of course go to Enigma, so next round we have all 3 ultimates actually available. That will not always work out exactly like that, because yeah, you will use Enigma's ultimate here on turn 2 instead of one of his incantations. That depends on the RNG that when it comes to the energy that the game throws at you on turn number 1. But this is literally how you go about it. And now in the very next turn we're gonna use Regulus ult, we're gonna use Coppelia ult, and that's basically all about it. We're gonna this turn not throw all the energy out that we can. Now you can see that my hand, I have a whole bunch of energy actually available to myself, so I could in theory opt into using incantations with Regulus and Coppelia instead. But as you can see here, my tune now requires 50 AP to cast and to generate this double chaos energy, so I want to wait for it, and that's why I'm gonna opt into both ultimates for both Regulus and Coppelia. You always want to use Regulus's ultimate first, and then you're gonna go ahead, everything that you have with Rhiannon, boom boom, always prioritize the buff and then the debuff. Now Enigma ult is ready, and that's gonna be about it. Here a very important note where you can go wrong is to the turn that you use an ultimate. With Coppelia, you don't use the mineral energy. The turn that you use Regulus's ultimate, you don't use up your star energy, right? You use everything else that you have available. If you have an AP to spare but only energy, you move 1 energy, boom, there you go. And now next turn with both buffs from Coppelia's ultimate and the buff from Regulus. Yeah, Regulus only lasts for 1 round, so that doesn't really count. But Coppelia's buff from her ultimate is now available for herself and for Regulus. So that is going to be the turn in which we bust out all the possible energy and use our tune. And this is usually where this team actually ends every single battle. Yeah, as I said, like the animations, they take a while. I am even running out of things to say. That's how long it takes. But yeah, this is just the case currently. Wait, if you think this is crazy, wait until Noir releases and she busts out her ultimate 5 billion times in a row. It's gonna get even more crazy. And there we go, right? You can see that, yeah, we have the ultimate for Rhiannon available again, and now is the turn where we bust out all of our energy, we go completely nuts, and here we're gonna enter battle on round 3. If you don't have Rhiannon at P5, this will be round 4 for you. But yeah, doesn't make that much of a difference if I'm being honest. So we're gonna go ahead, every single energy, yeah, we're gonna make sure that Regulus uses her stuff first right now. Both of those cuties use their damage incantations. Now, this turn you could also it would technically be the turn in which you also could rebuff with Coppelia. But if you look at my hand, I have so much mineral energy. I don't want to use this buff, I want to go nuts this round, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to throw out every single energy into my AP area. Always, always, always with an emphasis onto the star energy, obviously, because Regulus is the main DPS and Regulus is the one that we want to go nuts with. So yeah, that's going to be about it. And that is already how you're gonna play the Conduit archetype in the 3rd anniversary right now, together with Rhiannon in Enigma. Enigma is for the time being very replaceable. You can use any viable sustain character that you want, be it Kiparina, Marsha, Fatutu, or whoever you can think of, whoever sustain you like. You can just use it in this team and it's gonna be completely fine, no matter what. Rhiannon is quite recommended because Rhiannon does not have a very potent replacement at the moment, so that's why we definitely want to use her for the time being until next version. Next version, Enigma is out forever, Echo anyways, and then Rhiannon becomes also replaceable. Then you can use whatever the crap you want in that slot that doesn't take up too much AP, like for example Mercuria for additional crit buffs or something like that. And yeah, that's gonna be about it. Always keep the buff for Coppelia alive. That is the main and core reason why she is here, right? It's the highest priority with Coppelia is to keep her buff alive, and then use her ultimate from time to time to keep these, or to regain the stacks with Regulus that I was talking about earlier. But that's gonna be about it, guys. Now we can hop into taking a look into the resonances for Coppelia, Regulus and Rhiannon, their Psychubes and their portraits one more time very briefly. So let's go ahead and do that. The best in slot Psychube for Regulus is not for rehabilitation, as I see many people throw around. It is actually never-ending Q&A, the signature Psychube for Hisabef. And the reason is simply that whenever the carrier would cast a mass ultimate, which Regulus does, you gain critical damage plus a certain amount of percentage. This can stack up to 3 times, and Regulus stacks this up very, very, very fast. As yeah, we do not rely on having Moxie. We have this harmonization with Regulus being like so cheap when it comes to her cost, and she casts a lot of incantations every single round. She fills up the harmonization meter very, very fast, is able to recast her ultimate tons of times very, very fast. Do you get these stacks here of this critical damage stacked up? And that's the reason this is the best in slot. We do have an honorable mention and the replacement here though. The honorable mention is this one right here for the twins, the Art of Atoms. Because if the carrier is a Star Afflatus, which Regulus obviously is, you gain a little bit of Conduit might, and this Psychube gives you flat critical hit rate. So not too bad, but not as beneficial as the critical damage would be from Hisabev's signature Psychube. Just for completion's sake, as I see this so much, let's take a look at for Rehabilitation. This one also gives you flat critical hit rate, but the effect is very, very underwhelming. That when the Star Carrier is like when the carrier is a Star Afflatus character, you gain a little bit of incantation might. That is not necessarily what we truly look for. We look for critical damage, critical hit rate, you know, that kind of stuff. And then within the same round, after they cast an ultimate, each of their one target attack type incantation grants a little bit of damage dealt. Yeah, that is not too bad, because as I mentioned, we use the ultimate with Regulus a whole bunch, so you get this damage dealt plus quite a bunch, but it is just way better to stack critical damage. It is just what it is. But this Psychube is not bad, it's not a brick. In case you would have this already at max level, and you would struggle a little bit with resources when it comes to leveling up the two better Psychubes that I showed you, then I mean, this Psychube is fine. The signature Psychube for Coppelia is her signature Psychube called the Silent Anthem, and it is terrifying, because in order for you to obtain this Psychube, you have to play the Syndrome of Silence, and oh boy is that mode absolute dog shit. I call this the Syndrome of Endless Torture. Anyways, it gives you critical damage, that is very, very, very beneficial, and when entering battle, if the carrier is a mineral character, you gain damage dealt plus 8%. This will be important, keep that in mind, when we talk about her resonance. For each conduit energy consumed among all allies, grants conduit might plus a certain amount of percent to all allies for 3 rounds, and this can stack up to 16 times. Very, very good. Yeah, it's the best in slot, needless to explain, I think. Then, for Rhiannon, we have her signature Psychube called the Soft Rain of Yesterday, and it gives you damage taken reduction, which doesn't really matter, but when entering battle, if the carrier is an all-rounder, Rhiannon is the only all-rounder currently available in the game, then we gain attack plus a certain amount of percent, max HP, very, very important. Both of these stats are very important. Attack is very important when you play her in Conduit, and max HP increase is of course very important if you play her in Bloodtide. After the carrier actively casts an incantation, you grant yourself a little bit of damage dealt, or in fact to all allies for 3 rounds. This stacks up to 6 times, not only for yourself. Super good Psychube, needless to explain why it's the best in slot, I guess. Let's take a look at the resonances, starting off with Regulus again. Here, the special piece is going to be Genuity. We look for the most amount of critical damage, and this gives us 6%. There are 2 other pieces here that also give us 6% critical damage, but Genuity on top of that gives us at least a little bit of incantation might. That's why it's the best piece. And yeah, we're gonna opt into as much critical hit rate and critical damage as we possibly can here with this very resonance pattern. And if you want to say use the same that I use here, that is gonna be level 15. I will leave a link to that in the description down below. Coppelia's resonance. Next, we're gonna opt everything into critical damage, critical bonus, and critical hit rate in that order when it comes to planning this Tetris thing here out. The special piece that we're going to use is Elucidation, because the most important stat for Coppelia is Ultimate Might. That is the most beneficial for her in battle, and Elucidation is the only piece here in this game that would give us at least a little bit of Ultimate Might. That's going to be about that. So let's move on to Rhiannon. And last but not least, Rhiannon's resonance. We have 2 different resonance patterns here. If you play her in Bloodtide, you're gonna opt everything into HP. If you play her in Conduit, you're gonna opt everything into the stat attack. That is very, very important to know. Here the resonance patterns, we have two different ones. If you play her in Conduit, you want, as I just said, the most amount of attack stat possible. That would go to the hyper piece. If you play her in Blood Tide, you want, yeah, the most amount of HP, correct. And that would go to Overindulgence. So depending on what team you will play her in, that is gonna be the piece that you will opt into. If you want the same resonance patterns as I have here, then I'm gonna leave a link to that in the description down below. Same will I do for Coppelia, by the way. Looking into portraits, starting off with Regulus one more time. Here, every single portrait has a whole bunch of value, except, yeah, maybe portrait 3 is the worst of them all, but as I always told you, you want Regulus at least P2, because that buffs her incantation number 1, the one that we always gonna spam as much as we possibly can. We want this to deal as much damage as possible, and portrait number 1 and 2 both boost the damage from this very incantation that we spam out of the wazoo by quite a tremendous amount if you count both portraits together here. Then portrait number 3 would boost the damage from her incantation number 2 once, but yeah, that is not too valuable. But portrait number 4 and 5 are also then very, very ridiculous, because portrait number 4 makes us use our ultimate much more than we usually are. Even more, we already use our ultimate very, very often. With portrait number 4, it becomes quite ridiculous. And to top that off, portrait number 4 and 5, they have synergy, because as I said, portrait number 4 makes us use our ultimate even more than we already do, and then with portrait 5, the damage that we deal with our ultimate is increased significantly, plus the Conduit activation level is boosted by 2 additional levels, and we, instead of dodging 1 attack or having immunity for 1 attack, we have that for 2 attacks. Absolutely incredible. So that's why I always told you P2 Regulus is the recommended amount, but go as deep as you possibly can. It is pretty much the same story here for Coppelia, not to the same extent exactly how it would be with Regulus, but Coppelia also every single one of her portraits here has super good value and is, yeah, kinda busted if we are being completely honest here. Portrait number 1, the buff that buffs our critical hit rate, now lasts for 4 instead of 3 turns. It buffs our critical hit rate and critical damage conversion rate even more. We gain 10% more crit rate and so on and so forth. We gain more energy out of it. The portrait number 2 makes us use our ultimate more, which Coppelia is very, very important for Coppelia, and this is also important for Regulus. So P2 here one more time would be the recommended amount, but yeah, it's pretty tough to come by Coppelia portraits, especially if you want to opt into like Rhiannon portraits, you want Regulus portraits, maybe you want to deck out Nautica with 1 or 2, you know what I mean. So it is pretty tough to come by P2 Coppelia, but I mean, if you can somehow manage that, that is absolutely amazing. And then her other portraits here, they increase her damage output further and further and further. Portrait 5 is a complete absurdity. We gain more and more mineral energy. We gain +3 mineral energy instead of 2, you know what I mean? And her stack limits are increased, and yeah, everything is completely out of control, right? But yeah, P1 is super busted. P2 is even better than P1. So there, I would tell you to stop. P1 is amazing, but stop at P2. If you can go further, go as far as you please. For Rhiannon, our owl lady, we have portraits here that, yeah, boost her damage output. Portrait 1 and 2 are utility. Portrait 2 is pretty important, I would say, because it makes you, simply speaking, 1 turn faster. And being 1 turn faster is like the best thing you can possibly do, right? Speed is everything. Everything is judged by how fast it is. It plays a huge role in judging a character and a team. It really depends on how fast teams and characters are, and P2 boosts you by an entire turn. That is pretty incredible. It's the perfect timing and the perfect place to stop for Rhiannon. Then 3, 4, 5 boost your damage output. P5 boosts your damage output by absolutely ridiculous and absurd amounts. It gives you a little bit of quality of life and everything. So again, the recommended amount of portraits, as it mostly is P2. But yeah, look, either you go for P2. If you want to go further than P2 though, you shall go all the way to P5. Don't stop at P3 or P4. Kind of the same scenario with Regulus as well. Don't stop at P3 with Regulus. And here with Rhiannon, don't stop at P3 or P4. If you go further than 2, go for 5. And there we have it, guys. That's Conduit in the 3rd anniversary. Excuse me. But yeah, that's about it for the video, guys. I hope this was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and Nautica is gorgeous.